US Vice President JD Vance let it rip yesterday when he gave a speech at the Munich Security Conference. Now, many are heralding this as a breakthrough moment where the European elites finally got their comeuppance, and others are more cynical, saying it's a sign of a new power structure coming over the West. Personally, I think JD Vance is an excellent speaker, and I'm more than willing to give him the benefit of the doubt here. It seems to me he's smashed a massive hole in the European project, and rightly so. And while I may not agree with everything JD Vance, Donald Trump and MAGA seem to be aiming towards, this does seem to me to be a massive step in the right direction. European elites hate JD Vance and Donald Trump for two simple reasons. Number one, they're on the populist right and they're outside of the globalist liberal project. And number two, Europe is effectively in the American empire. They provide the muscle and Europeans hate to be reminded of it. That means when America changes direction, Europe will sooner or later have to follow.
And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
How dare you!
What no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered.
Thank you, JD Vance. A round of applause for that man. It's so refreshing to hear a major political figure call out the madness that's going on in the UK and other European nations. We're treated like criminals simply for questioning the liberal project at this point.
And of all the pressing challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration.
Exactly. I've been saying since the beginning of this channel, immigration is easily the biggest issue Europe faces. We can have as many fancy political theories as we like, but it comes down to the European people could be replaced in their own continent. I think I speak for millions of Europeans when I say that Europe is our home. We don't see ourselves as interchangeable with people from the third world. We don't hate anybody at all, but we've said again and again, we don't want this mass migration and huge cultural upshift.
Contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders. And it is the business of democracy to adjudicate these big questions at the ballot box. I believe that dismissing people, dismissing their concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people out of the political process protects nothing.
Right on. Look at them. They're not taking it well, are they? All channeling their inner Greta there.
How dare you!
But while the Trump administration is very concerned with European security and believes that we can come to a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and we also believe that it's important in the coming years for Europe to step up in a big way to provide for its own defense, the threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
I have to say, I tried to be careful not to get too excited by political speeches. It scrambles your judgment, you get too involved and you look silly down the line, but JD Vance got me with that one. I think it's a really good speech. I mean, imagine Keir Starmer listening to this. He'll be outraged, won't he? He'll be back in the boxing gym, practicing his moves, getting ready for JD Vance if he's brave enough to land in London. And funnily enough, Keir Starmer's boxing skills are a good symbol for the power of Europe on the global stage at the moment. It's weak, it's ineffectual, it's inexperienced, and can't really defend itself. So let's see how these European strongmen responded to Vance's speech. First up, here's the German Defense Minister Pistorius.
Speech we heard by the US Vice President. We fight for your right to be against us. That is the motto, one of the mottos of the Bundeswehr, and it stands for our democracy. This democracy that was just called into question by the US Vice President, and not just the German democracy, but Europe as a whole.
Yeah, that might be because you're an elite class of bureaucratic overlords who don't give two hoots about what the European people think.
He spoke of the annulment of democracy, and if I understood him correctly, he compares the condition of Europe with the condition that prevails in some authoritarian regimes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not acceptable.
Now, these people can applaud and pat themselves on the back about what wonderful liberals they are all they like, but the game is up. We know they're all authoritarian bureaucrats deep down. Here's Guy Verhofstadt. Remember this fella? He's president of the European Movement International. He states, "Is this the US speaking or Russia?" Oh, good put down, Guy. "Thank you for the lessons, Mr. Vance," he says, "but if you speak of democracy while supporting Europe's far right, you have no legitimacy." I'll tell you something else that doesn't have legitimacy, Guy, and that's European liberal elites calling everything they don't like far right. Talking of far right, or far left, depending on how you read him, here's Putin's Rasputin figure, according to some, Alexander Dugin. He states the European globalists have been flattened, they can't say anything, and he's been enjoying the spectacle. Next up we have Reform's Rupert Lowe. He called out the BBC for a quote disgraceful take as they stated JD Vance was attacking Europe. He felt JD Vance is trying to protect it. He also stated the Americans have got a hero in Vance. This annoyed exactly the type of people you thought it would. Here's Lib Dem MP Mike Martin. Everything you need to know about Reform contained in one tweet. They are pro-Russian. Oh no.
How dare you!
Ex-leader of the Lib Dems, Tim Farron, stated Reform are doing a good job of reminding us they're the absolute opposite of patriots. Oh yeah, sure Tim, because when British people think of their nation, they think of Tim Farron and the Lib Dems, you know, it really gets the soul stirring. MP Saoirse Eastwood states she struggles to see how Lowe is a patriot because he can find common cause with the Trump administration that's willing to slap tariffs on the UK and refers to Germany and the UK as a threat within. She's going to have to defend our values now, don't you know? Of course, when these idiots talk about defending their values, they mean defending globalist liberalism. But the problem for them is they're just shouting into the wind now like lost idiots. This is because the European people have been moving away from globalist liberalism for quite a while now, and the European Union has been struggling because of it. However, it's been able to maintain its power because they've been backed by the globalist American system. So in essence, the Euro elites are being exposed and left behind, and this is an excellent thing because it could see meaningful change occur in Europe. Now, as I stated at the beginning of this video, some commenters are pouring water on this, saying, look, it's just one power structure taking over from another. It's not really going to change the demographic shifts that are happening in the Western world. And maybe that's true. But the way I see it is this is a big step in the right direction. It's punched a hole in the European globalist elite. And secondly, while it's important to be accurate, I've been somewhat cynical towards MAGA and Reform myself on this channel. I do think at the same time we have to take our wins when we get them. It's quite bleak in Europe at the moment, and this to me is a step in the right direction and something we should welcome and celebrate. As I often state on this channel, I believe Europe has to go through a sort of spiritual rebirth. I think that starts with us as individuals. It's what I speak a lot about on the Substack. Do check that out down below. A lot more content on that coming down the line. Other than that, do let me know your thoughts about this and consider subscribing to the channel if you're new.